Hey folks, Mark Scroggins with another version of Family Law Talk. Today we have Julie Kirkpatrick with us.
Hello, everybody.
So Julie is another attorney with the SLG team, and Julie also was there from day one.
I have been since the day you opened the doors.
So, however, Julie also seemed to make a questionable call where she and her husband were living on the beach in Ecuador, and she was working remotely for me. She decided to come back, rejoin the dark side, and get back in the throes of family law litigation.
You know, I cried every day the first week I had to drive to work, right?
I get it.
I did.
I get it. And
my beach house was gone. I couldn't,
So,
it's sad.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about child custody and enforcements. So something that happens all the time, enforcing some of those things. Let's talk a little bit with child custody. How soon can you modify a child custody order?
Depends on what part of it you're trying to modify.
All right. Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
As soon as you have a material and substantial change in circumstances.
Right.
Or if it's been more than a year, you have to have an emergency to modify the conservatorship unless it's been at least a year.
Right. Well, and so there are things in the law.
Yes.
And then there are practical considerations on stuff, right? So, it's been my experience that if you file within a year, basically, and even if it's, close to a year, a judge is going to be like, what the hell are you doing back so fast? So you need to have some pretty jacked up facts that are basically kind of getting over into a child endangerment type situation, right?
Yes.
So,
especially if you had to see the judge a lot during the divorce or the original action.
Exactly. It's amazing to me where you will see sometimes people are coming back and they're wanting to relitigate stuff that they just got done with a trial 3 months ago. And it's like, well, so explain to me what the hell is going to change the judge's mind on this now?
Yeah.
And
what's your material and substantial change in circumstances?
Right.
I mean, it's been 3 months.
Right.
Although, we have had judges find a material and substantial change in less than 3 months, if you remember that lovely case.
I do. Yeah, let's not go there because judges, we love you. Okay.
Yes, we
do. Something that I find interesting goes through, and with this being a legislative year, you always have a bunch of stuff that is put in front of the legislature, and sometimes it gets out of committee and actually makes it to a vote. Sometimes it doesn't. But one of the things that always is getting put forward is making a 50-50 possession schedule the starting point instead of a standard possession order. So can you explain a little bit the difference between a 50-50 and an SPO?
The standard possession order has the child with one parent a little more during the week,
right?
I would say, and maybe an extra 3 or 4% during the year. They'll give the other parent a little more time over the summer to even things out. It's really already close to 50-50. However, it's not quite there. I think it's a little, unless you're doing a week on, week off, it's a little less back and forth for the kids,
So, the way this has generally been put forth, it has been the father's rights advocates that have really been pushing the 50-50 possession as the starting point. Do you have a personal opinion about that? I find that I kind of go back and forth.
There was actually a Collin County judge at one point who that was his mindset.
Right.
And, I kind of think it's the right thing to do. I mean, why should, it's not 1950. Why should mothers be treated differently? If they've been staying at home and taking care of the child, it's one thing. But if both parents are working all the time, one's picking them up, one's dropping them off, they're, taking turns cooking and reading bedtime stories and all that,
right,
then, they should get an equal share in time with their children if they're ready to, if that's what they want.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. It's interesting where you talk about the standard possession order being pretty damn close to a 50-50 possession schedule already. I've never sat down and put, pen to paper to figure it out for myself. Now, one of the things though that is interesting is if you look at that with a quality time, It's real close then. If you actually are looking at it based on, the number of overnights that you have, how big a fluctuation is there, but the amount of actual quality time is pretty on par, because a lot of the time stuff during the week, especially as kids get older, it's like they've got their own friends, they've got their own agenda on things that they want to do. If they're in any kind of sporting events, and especially once they get mobile, it's totally different.
Yeah, no. And even when they're younger, I mean, you come home, you're arguing with them to get their homework done. You spend, 2 hours standing over them, beating them to get their homework done. And then it's bath and bedtime,
Right.
So it's really not quality time. It's work time for the parent.
Yeah.
Quality time is on the weekends.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. That is, and that's something a lot of people don't, I don't think seem to get a lot of the time. And also, there are plenty of cases where it seems to me that one parent or the other, if not both, its primary objective is to jack with the other parent.
Absolutely.
So, and
Absolutely.
the negative impact that has, in my opinion, on kids is huge.
It's terrible. I mean, we see it. We see it all the time.
Right.
One parent they use the children as pawns
Right.
to either control the other parent or try to get what they want, or, I want 50-50 so I don't have to pay any child support.
Right. Yeah, it's a bad scenario. I'm glad that we have taken a position that, look, if you've got a child custody matter and you really have shown that you have a desire to really spend time with that child, we'll fight for you all day long.
Absolutely.
But if it's coming in just a bullshit position to try to gain leverage on the division of property, I think that's frankly unethical. So.
I think the 50-50 as the base point would probably help the judges some too, because some of them, sometimes they don't want to get outside of what's already in the family code without feeling like they have to have some legitimate reason. Whereas if it's at 50-50, then they could back off of that if, mom was the stay-at-home parent or dad was the stay-at-home parent, there was a reason not to do the equal possession time. But if they have that as a starting, kind of like they got rid of the primary parent like they used to have. Now
Right.
you can have a geographic restriction instead of having one parent have the exclusive right to decide where they live.
Right.
I think that's helped cut back on a lot of arguments for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain, whoever came up with the, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, was full of shit. I mean, because those things I think have a huge impact. I mean, terminology is something that people will absolutely go to war over, just like what you were talking about. Primary. So, now where we talk about someone being primary, right? It's not because that's any designation of they're the primary parent. It is because they get to establish the primary domicile of the child.
Right.
But it carries such weight with people and the story that they tell and their concern about what perception is going to be. How am I going to be perceived by those around me if I'm not primary?
Especially the women, because it's been so leaning towards women in the past, and everyone expected the women to be the primary parent,
Right.
or the one who had the rights that, they think that somebody's automatically going to think something's wrong, or they're a bad parent, they've got
Right.
drug problems, this, that, or the other, if they aren't primary.
Right. Well, and that's something we've got Nicole Bisco, who is going to join us, who is our newest lawyer that has joined the fray. And so, I mean, I've got my own opinions, but being a white male, I don't think I'm allowed to
You're not allowed to
espouse
have any opinions.
about how women treat each other and different stuff. But that's something that I want to talk to with y'all and see what your impression is on that. Because I think women in general have a hard job coming into the workplace with the pressure that y'all apply to each other, and the changing of societal norms. firearms and all of that kind of thing. So I guess that's one thing that, guys don't have to deal with as much. So I don't think I'm actually allowed to even laugh at that at this point.
No, you're not.
So I'm probably going to get cited by the PC police on this bullshit. So
knocked upside your head,
That I don't think I'm too worried about. But let's talk about something that goes right along with child custody, and that is what happens, because we get these calls all the time, when someone decides that they're going to start jacking with the other parent in their possession time.
Then we have to file an enforcement.
Right. So can you explain to people a little bit what that looks like? Or the different things that it can cover with child custody?
Well, if we're talking about child custody, we're talking about the other parent not turning over the child. But in order for us to be able to file an enforcement, you have got to be following the orders exactly. Just because mom texted and said you can't come pick the child up doesn't mean you don't drive over to mom's house at 6 o'clock or whatever time your pickup time is and attempt to pick that child up.
And that's a huge mistake.
We can't enforce it if you aren't doing what you're supposed to do.
So what kind of advice do you give to people about that kind of situation?
Follow the order to the T. Record it or have some way of showing that you were there at that certain time. Like if you're using Our Family Wizard, which is a website, you can check in and log in and show where you were at a certain time. It's perfect to show that you were at mom's house or at the school or wherever the exchange location is at the exchange time.
I'm sorry, I'm starting to laugh because I'm realizing how long I've been doing this. And I'm thinking back to the type of advice I used to give, which was take a paper with you. It was like, dealing in a hostage crisis, take a paper with today's date and get a camera and take a picture with the house in the background. I mean, so, God damn, I'm old.
You are old, Mark.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, big guy. Didn't mean to say that, but that kind of realization really,
See, I'm as old as you, but I haven't been practicing quite as long
right.
as you.
So I remember making those kinds of recommendations, and it was really cool when you had those new digital cameras that had hit the market with like, what was it, a 4 meg camera or something, and now you've got 12, whatever.
They're insane.
Is it meg or what?
Pixels? No, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, the good stuff. But it was one of those little like Samsung cameras that, would tell someone to whip that bad boy out and take a picture and, anyway. So that's something that happens all the time. You've got to make sure that you have actually done what is called for, because that is actually a really good ploy to be used by the other side, is saying, don't even bother. Don't come get little Johnny. He doesn't want to see you. He isn't going to come with you.
Exactly.
And then you don't go and try to pick up little Johnny. And guess what? You're SOL. You got nothing for an enforcement. You might be able to get some time reinstated, but that's the extent of it. And what's the velvet hammer on all of this? Throwing someone's ass in jail.
Exactly. And if you haven't followed exactly to the T, which you were supposed to do in that order, there's no chance of getting them in contempt and putting them in jail.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you what, couple weekends in jail is very helpful in getting the other side to behave in the future.
Well, some people, that is the only thing that is going to get their attention. There are plenty of folks who think that they can just skate the order and that they'll never get in trouble, and there are some judges that are well known for, if you do that, you're going to go sit in jail.
Pack your toothbrush.
That's right. Bring a toothbrush because you're going to the popo, and then there are others that will let people skate a little bit more, and that's a shame.
It is. I mean, unless there's some good reason,
Right.
Otherwise there's no reason, unless there's some abuse that they think is happening or something like that. They should put them in jail, at least for a little bit. Let them see what's going to happen if they don't start complying.
Well, and so I think, there are ways to do that where you can have someone can get on work release, or they can just be in on weekends.
Exactly.
Or, so let them go to work and then they check in. I've seen stuff now where, you can also be put on home arrest. And so somebody could have an ankle bracelet that they get to wear for a period of time. And, but there are all kinds of different ways, but that's a good way to get someone's attention.
Absolutely.
So
prevent it from happening again.
Well, that's exactly right. And so, one of the other advantages on this is if you succeed, you're going to get your attorney's fees, right?
Absolutely. Well,
Most
you
of the
will
time.
get what's considered reasonable and necessary attorney fees. The court's required, if you win an enforcement motion, they have to award reasonable and necessary attorney fees. Now,
What is that?
Exactly. It's up to the judge as to what they feel is reasonable and necessary. As your attorneys, we're going to put on our fees and say why they're reasonable and necessary. Sometimes the court's like, yep, that's great. And sometimes they don't, they think it's charged too much or whatever, or your client is just kind of being difficult even though they technically have won, so they only give you a small amount of fees.
So that's one of the things I think it's important for people to keep in mind. Though, so I will get asked occasionally on an enforcement, well, if we're going to get an award of attorney's fees, why do I need to pay a retainer?
Yeah.
And it's, this is a reimbursement type of situation. That is not something, we're not in the business of financing lawsuits. So that is something where if you get an award of attorney's fees, which happens more often than not, then that's something that is going to go to the rest of your case. So, and a lot of the time you see enforcements are coupled with another lawsuit.
Right, like in the middle of a modification, they're not doing what they're supposed to, or in the middle of the divorce.
Or it's something that brings about the necessity of a modification.
This is true.
So what advice would you give to people about how to go about choosing the right lawyer for you on an enforcement case?
I think on any case, you need to find a lawyer that's got some experience, is familiar with family law, and somebody that you're comfortable with. If you've got to give them all your dirty laundry, or we need to know the things before we go walking into court. I've walked in once or twice where I was blindsided by some stuff, and it's not fun. I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from, if you haven't told me beforehand.
Right.
So, but you need somebody that you respect and you think will do a good job for you.
Yeah, feeling comfortable is important.
Absolutely.
Because you need to be able to walk in and basically go, okay, here are my troubles.
Yeah.
And you handle this and let me know what I need to do. And pay attention to, go in with a list of questions.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Know what you want to ask. So if you just got served with someone, provide a copy of the lawsuit, right? That's a way that the lawyer can actually give you some advice. Feel free to press them on, how do I get from point A to point B? And I think talking about what your goals are and what your expectations are, and you need to hire a lawyer who is not just going to blow sunshine, but is going to actually tell you, is that achievable?
If they're telling you that it can definitely win, or, you got a 90% chance of this game, they're full of crap.
Yeah.
So,
It's very rare, in having done this for a long time, coming close to 30 years now, it is rare that you can look at something and say that is an absolute slam dunk.
Well, yeah, because there's always, they might forget to give you some facts that they don't know are important.
Right.
There could be any number of reasons why something may not go the way you originally thought it was going to go. So, yeah, I never give that advice.
Yeah.
We're going to get in there and we're going to do this, this, and this is how we're going to try to get you what you want, and go from there.
Well, so let's circle back for just a second to child custody litigation. Unfortunately, so much is about appearance, right? And I don't mean just physically how
It's
you're.
about the optics.
That's right. Optics. So what kind of advice do you give a client in a child custody matter? What should they do? What shouldn't they do?
They should be bending over backwards to help the other parent foster the relationship with the child. They shouldn't be withholding the child. If, the dad he's supposed to call at 7 and he calls at 7:30, let him talk to the child. Who cares if they're 30 minutes late? You want to be the party that's being the good party, let me put it that way. Doing what you're supposed to, doing everything you can to help the other party, so that the judge is like, they're doing a great job. Why would I want to change that? Why would we mess with that?
Yeah, document it.
Oh, absolutely.
So if someone is, always late, they don't show up on time. I mean, that can be good evidence as far as showing that the child is not a priority.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Or if they're getting, maybe you're looking at wanting to modify the possession and the other parent's letting you have a lot of extra time, start keeping a calendar.
Right.
Absolutely. Every extra day, every extra hour you've got, because that will help you also.
Well, and we've talked a lot about it, and you've heard me give this advice all the time of, don't press send.
Yeah.
So someone in our own office I gave that to. Because a lot of time people they reply one way in an email, they respond another way in text messaging, and then they get to social media, and all bets are off.
Yeah. If you're never post stuff about your litigation on social media. That's number one, because it's all admissible. If you're in the middle of a divorce, don't be posting about your new boyfriend. Don't be posting about how you're going out partying. Just keep it to yourself, or,
right.
pause your accounts for a while or something.
Yeah, that is not the time to be trying to build up your Instagram
Friends
influencing. Not a good time. So if you were going to give anybody one piece of advice on child custody litigation, what would it be?
That it's hard on the kids. And so if you can possibly settle this with the other parent, we need to settle it. Honestly, that's really seeing these kids go through this, and some of them, it really messes them up.
Right.
So, otherwise CYA yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. For those of you that didn't get that, that's cover your ass. So, I always say don't press send, but the other thing that, and I probably don't say this enough, do not talk shit about the other parent to the kid. Don't do that.
No.
It is so harmful to the child, because whether the child realizes it or not, they're half of that other parent. So when you're dog cussing, your baby daddy, it is really negatively impacting that kid.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's not even just talking to the child about the other parent, but I know with my own personal experience, I would get on the phone after my daughter was supposed to be in bed talking to one of my friends and about him, and it turned out she wasn't in bed. She was sitting on the stairs listening to me.
Right.
So, I didn't intend for her to hear bad things about her father, and as soon as I realized it, we stopped that. But yeah, you don't know when they're listening and hiding around the corner. They got big ears, and
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
So, let's see. What is one thing that everybody should know about you that is not family law related?
That's not family law. I don't know I graduated from law school at the age of 40 and got my license.
There you go.
I was a single mom for college and law school.
That's huge.
So worked full time for both also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I just find amazing. It amazes me when people did that. We give out a scholarship a couple times a year, and this past semester we gave out 2, and one of the recipients, this gal had 3 kids, was homeschooling the kids and finishing up college before going to law school. And I'm just thinking, how is that freaking possible? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, my studying got done while they were with their dad. Because,
Still, the amount of time.
I can't even imagine how she did that.
I'm just amazed when people can work full time, and they're the night students that go
And that's
you
what
do,
I was doing, yeah.
And so you went to SMU, correct?
I did for law school, yes.
Okay, so and was that when they had the program at night as well?
It's the very first year they restarted it. I was
Okay.
accepted that very first year.
That is just amazing to me, how you can work all day long, and then you're going to have all the reading and everything that needs to be done, go to class, study. It's just amazing.
If it wasn't for my mother, I would have never survived. She would come over, take care of my kids, do my grocery shopping, clean my house up some for me. Really, because that's what was getting, neglected. I'd come home, spend a little time with the kids if I could, and then I'd be studying half the night.
Right.
So
there's another thing to think about, kiddos. Keep your family close, and those relationships are incredibly important, you know? So what do we see all the time when people are getting divorced and all of a sudden you go from 2 incomes to 1 income, or you've got a situation where someone's rejoining the workforce when they weren't in it before? I mean, you've got to struggle to make ends meet sometimes, right? And so those family relationships are hugely important on, you know, who's going to help you out with the kiddos. So if you've been an asshole, you know, guess what? It's really easy to go, no, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, thank you, Julie. And one thing I wanted to say to everybody, I mean, Julie has been my right hand for a long time. So if you've got a good impression, that's all me. If you've got a bad impression, that's because of her. But she has been fantastic. I'm so glad that you are a part of the SLG team. And she is one of these people smarter than me that I surround myself with that help me look good. So thank you. Thank y'all. And if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call Scroggins Law Group at 214-469-3100, or they could email me at julie@scrogginslawgroup.com.
And I cannot say enough about you will be in great hands with Julie. So I think she likes a good old street fight in the courtroom as much as I do.
I'm a little competitive. I have to. My husband won't even play games with me, okay, because of my competitiveness.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I get it. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to this Family Law Talk, and we'll look forward to the next episode. Take care. Call us if you need us.